This Saturday night in the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, Khabib Nurmagomedov defends his UFC lightweight title against Ireland's own Conor McGregor. It's one of the biggest fights in UFC history, and we here at SevereMMA decided to get on some of the best journalists in the game to give us their breakdown and predictions for the fight. You can see these full interviews over on our Patreon, patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast, but what we have here now is the guys' predictions and their breakdown of the fights. First up, we have ESPN's Ariel wanting to tell us how he sees this fight going.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised as far as the fight is concerned. I wouldn't be surprised if Conor attacks him. Like he actually, it's very similar to the Chad Mendes fight, the way he started that fight. He came flying out and everyone thought that he would stand back, right, and wait. I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to be as aggressive as possible. You know, we know how aggressive he likes to be, you know, taking the center of the cage and things like that. But even opening himself up, people, if you look at this fight on paper, would think that it would be in his best interest not to rush out of the gate because he would be opening himself up to an early takedown. But he's kind of defied that over the course of his career. I strongly believe that Khabib isn't as, I don't want to say bad of a striker, but people are pointing to the Al Iaquinta fight and calling his striking amateurish. There is a part of me that believes that Khabib was playing possum in that fight, that he was trying to lure Conor into taking the fight against him, knew he was watching the fight, tried to show elementary-like striking, and wanted him to say somewhere in Dublin or Crumlin or wherever he was watching that fight that, oh, this guy, I mean, one left hand early on, and we're done. And so I actually believe that he was actually thinking about the Conor fight while fighting Al Iaquinta, if that makes sense, the old rope-a-dope, if you will, or the cage-a-dope if this were MMA. So I'm really curious to see Khabib striking. I'm really curious because if he is that stiff and if his striking truly is like that, then this could very well be a very early night. You know, we've seen far better strikers succumb to Conor way earlier than we expected as well. So it is classic. I feel the one thing I feel confident in saying is that if this fight goes past the third round, it's Khabib's fight to lose. And if you tell me, okay, the fight, I've seen the fight, it ended before the third, who do you think wins? And I'll say Conor. So I think that if it goes long, it will be very much in Khabib's favor. If it goes short, it's very much in Conor's favor.
Next up, we have Luke Thomas from MMAfighting.com, the presenter of the MMA Hour and the host of the MMA Beat. Luke is one of the best analysts in the game, and he breaks down the fight for us.
Man, I have really thought about this one a lot. I'm sure as everybody has. And I'm sure like me, you're like, well, it could go this way and maybe it goes that way and maybe it goes somewhere in between. My hunch is that it looks a lot more like a Khabib fight than a Conor fight. And for the record, I picked Jose Aldo to win, which was not a smart move, but I did pick Conor to beat Eddie. So I feel like I came around on him a little bit in terms of what his upside was after that. So what am I expecting? I guess I'm expecting Conor to probably hurt Khabib early, but not enough for that to matter in terms of stopping the takedown. I think Khabib finds it. I think he finds it even more in the second round. To me, it's the third round where everything really comes to life. One way or the other. I think you're not really going to know until then. And, you know, I've played it out in my mind a million times. Conor doesn't need a long time to cause a lot of damage. I don't think Khabib's chin is bad, but probably it's not legendary either. It's just no one's really put a ton of pressure on him in that regard. So I'll just say this in terms of how it ends. You could make a great argument for either guy, and I've been wrong about Conor in the past. If told me they think Conor's going to win and win convincingly, I could so easily and readily accept this. The only way I'm going to predict this is to say, historically, based on, I think, style matchups, again, without overemphasizing some of the more prevailing narratives that we've discussed on this podcast, Sean, I say tends favor Khabib, but not by a substantial margin. And there's a lot we don't know. There's a lot of variables. This is one, if you're a bettor, far away from this one, because it is going to be edge of your seat action.
Next up, we have Patrick Wyman, veteran MMA journalist, one of the best analysts in the game. You can check him out, Patrick_Wyman, over on Twitter. He is taking a hiatus from MMA at the moment to pursue his career in the history podcasting realm, but he came back for us to give us his breakdown.
Ooh, okay, so having to lock myself into something here. If you had asked me a couple of months ago, I think I would have answered Khabib. And I think that is still, I think Khabib is and should be the favorite. I lean very slightly toward him because at the end of the day, this fight is about who is going to be able to seize the momentum and move forward more. And I trust that Khabib will be able to do that a little bit more. I think that he's going to get his fight more than McGregor is going to get his. I don't see any particular reason to think that Khabib's chin is cracked. He has taken some hellacious shots from guys, and it has barely seemed to stop his forward momentum. Obviously, McGregor is a different beast, but I think you can trust Khabib's chin. If that's the case, even in a kind of a long, drag-out, back-and-forth fight, I think you kind of have to think that that's going to favor Khabib. That if the fight goes into the later rounds, he's going to have he's going to have the kind of gas to keep doing what he needs to do. McGregor's footwork has made some pretty drastic improvements, but he is never going to be comfortable fighting off his back foot. I don't think that's just so counter to his personality and the way that he approaches fights that if he is consistently pressured back, he's going to make mistakes. He's going to find options in there. He's going to be able to hit Khabib. He's probably going to have some moments where he seizes the initiative and moves forward. But at the end of the day, I just don't think you can overlook how uncomfortable McGregor is on a really basic level when he does not have the initiative. That to me is the key thing in this fight. He's going to have tricks. He's going to be prepared. He's going to have things that he can do to try to minimize that. But that's the basic dynamic. Is Khabib is going to be way more comfortable seizing the initiative and moving forward than McGregor will be being able to do the opposite of that. I think Khabib, as long as he makes those breaks where he's kind of circling in the middle and jabbing and trying to get his gas back, as long as he keeps those brief, doesn't get sucked into doing that for entire rounds. I think he's more comfortable doing that than McGregor is kind of fighting off his back foot. So when you talk about guys plan B, if they have to go beneath that initial layer, what does that look like? I'm a little more comfortable there with Khabib than I am with McGregor. So with a lot of caveats, I think my pick is probably Khabib by late knockout or submission, like fourth round. I think he's gonna eat his fair share of shots. I trust that McGregor is going to have things for him. I hope it's not a cop-out because I absolutely see how McGregor wins. It's hard to discount the guy with everything he's been able to accomplish. But I think the real irony here would be if McGregor loses this fight but lays the blueprint for the guy who actually does beat Khabib. That kind of seems like the most likely outcome to me here.
And finally, I spoke to ex-SevereMMA, MMAfighting.com, one of Ireland's top MMA journalists, our very own Petesy Carroll, to break down this fight. Petesy had lots of thoughts on this fight, and check out his breakdown and predictions for the fight.
Like, I have a shit answer for this. I don't know. Jesus Christ, this is what's keeping me up at night time, Sean. I mean, Jesus, I'm going back and forth to who's going to win the whole time. I expect Conor to come out really explosive, and to just try and back Khabib up as much as he can. And I think it's going to be up to Khabib to have to weather that storm. And it all depends on whether he can weather that storm or not. And if he can, I think it's going to be a long night. And obviously if he can't, it's going to be a very short one. But I'm stuck between that. I don't know what happens. I think Neil Seary made this point to me as well. He goes, whoever wins it, in theory, it will be a one-sided win. If you get me, because they're so weak in each other's strength areas. But I suppose that could change round to round. I really don't know. I'm still leaning towards Khabib. Like, I have big questions about whether Conor is coming in 100%, and that's just basically down. Like, he's been less visible than we've ever seen him. Even though he looks fantastic, Nick. I just feel like we don't have a good sense of the camp the way we usually would. I feel like there's always a lot more going on, like, and this might be just purely a performance decision, but he used to be on way more visible in terms of media he was doing. There was so many different things coming out. It felt like in the old days, like, you go onto YouTube and he'd been on like 5 shows. There was an embedded out, blah, blah, blah. So maybe next week I could change my mind. He has that incredible power to make people believe in him and to convince people. So I'm interested to see what he does next week in terms of that. I'm sorry. I know I'm leaning towards Khabib though. But I'm definitely not sure either way.
Thanks everyone for listening. I really appreciate it. If you want to hear those full interviews, as I mentioned, check them out on patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. Also check out SevereMMA.com all week for your ongoing coverage of UFC 229. You can follow me on Twitter at SeanSheehanBA. Follow at SevereMMA as well. Shout out to Padraig Foran for the editing of the video. Hope you all enjoy the fights on Saturday night. We'll see you. Good luck.